Co-powered by Samsonite. Tested like Samsonite. Volkswagen Tiguan, India's safest SUVW.
Good evening, viewers. You're watching To The Point. I'm Preeti Chaudhary. Well, it is the government versus the Supreme Court once again, which has also opened another front for government versus the opposition. The reason being, well, a letter written by the Law Minister Kiran Rijiju to the Chief Justice of India, Mr. Chandrachud. Why? Here's more.
It's Narendra Modi government versus the Supreme Court once again. Days after the court's critical comments on delay in appointment of judges, Law Minister Kiran Rijiju has written to the Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud. In a letter dated 6 January, sources say Rijiju has sought the presence of government nominees in the Search-cum-Evaluation Committee that will provide inputs on suitable candidates to the Collegium. The minister adds that in the case of appointment of High Court judges, nominees of state governments should also be included in the panel. The minister's letter has set off a political showdown, with the opposition attacking the BJP for violating the constitution. Minister Rijiju hit back at the opposition, saying his letter was in accordance with Supreme Court's verdict that struck down the National Judicial Appointments Commission Act. The Supreme Court in November and again in December had pulled up the government for this stand, pointing out that only 2 judges in a separate opinion had given the suggestion for a relook. The clear verdict has been to implement the Memorandum of Procedure finalized in 2017. Meanwhile, over 300 vacancies remain in the High Courts and 5 in the Apex Court itself. The opposition is calling the government's intervention a sinister move, with Congress, TMC and AAP alleging the government is trying to compromise the judiciary.
First and foremost, why this concerted, coordinated, sudden action? That question is not answered by anybody. Why suddenly this thing? It's been years since the NJAC judgment. Nothing has happened about the basic structure for decades. Suddenly why? This hints at a much larger purpose, a control freak purpose, a imposition dictatorial approach purpose.
We want total independence of judiciary. इसमें कोई तो मतलब वो लोगों का है. मतलब क्या है? This is a new type of planning. Now Supreme Court sent the Collegium recommendation to Government of India. Now there will be no value for the state government recommendation. Ultimately, the central government will directly interfere in the judiciary. That we don't want.
The legal fraternity is also unhappy.
The recent communication which has come in the public domain from the Law Minister doesn't appear to be a well understood of the legal position. Either he has not read the judgment, or he's not understood the judgment, or he's being advised wrongly. Because clearly the judgment does not entitle the government to ask for amending the Collegium itself.
The Collegium safeguards the independence of the judiciary. Now, that was sought to be undone by a constitutional amendment by this government. That constitutional amendment was struck down. This also goes against the theory of separation of powers. Can you imagine the Law Minister then writing, saying that, on all matters where the government is involved, why don't you please seat us on the bench itself?
The Law Minister's letter has not only escalated the face-off between the judiciary and the executive over appointments, but opened another front between the government and the opposition. With Anisha Mathur in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
So viewers, that's the latest flashpoint between the centre versus the judiciary. The Law Minister says representation in the committee for the selection of the Collegium will lead to transparency, versus what many legal minds, especially the opposition, says will lead to interference. It's a sinister move which actually is looking to control the judiciary. Which one is it? Let's take it to our legal experts this evening. Ranjit Kumar, former Solicitor General of India; Vikas Singh, a senior advocate and former additional Solicitor General; Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate. All three of them join us this evening. Appreciate you all for taking the time out. But I'd begin, with you, Mr. Vikas Singh. While there has been many a times, it's been raised by many legal experts that there was a certain opaqueness when it comes down to the Collegium selection. But a move such as this is being read by many, not just as sinister on what possibly political parties are calling it, but actually compromising the judiciary in the long run.
And I was told that the Law Minister has written that the government representative should be the Collegium itself. My comments were, based on that. But,
so we are having a bit of a problem. Mr. Vikas Singh, we're going to try and correct your video and audio line. Just stay on with us. Why doesn't, I'm going to just pose the same question to Mr. Ranjit Kumar. Mr. Kumar, would you like to take the question?
First of all, I would like to know from you, have you read the letter written by the Law Minister to the Chief Justice?
Well, sir, excerpts definitely.
Have you got a copy of? Have you got a copy of it? Can we at least be, wiser to know exactly what he has written in that letter?
So I'll give you an excerpt, and I have it right there.
Because we are only reading the media reports that a letter has been written.
So I have part of the excerpt. I can read it for you. It was entailed in our story, but I can read it for your better understanding. That there has been a letter. The need for I'm quoting this.
If you can, it will be easier to answer your question.
Sir, I'm quoting this of an excerpt that we have. Need for representation on a search cum evaluation committee for appointments of judges to the Supreme Court, which would lead to transparency. Well, that is one part of the excerpt that we have. Mr. Kumar.
Please. Okay. So now, 2-3 things I want to first place. The majority judgment in the NJC case was rendered by 4 judges: Justice Kehar, Justice Lokur, Justice Kurian Joseph, and Justice Goel. And each one of them said that we have read the drafts of the other judge and added their own reasons. Now, Justice Kurian Joseph in paragraph 990 categorically says that all is not well. To that extent, I agree with Justice Chalmeshwar that present Collegium system lacks transparency, accountability, and objectivity. And then there goes on to say, it's a long para, I don't want to take too much time. I'm sure viewers, you can put it up on the screen or the viewers can see it. It talks about deserving persons being overlooked. It talks of a trust deficit, etc. Now, none of the other majority judgments have said that we don't agree with Justice Kurian Joseph on what he writes in para 990. That's one part of the thing. Secondly, in para 5 of this judgment, Justice Kehar himself said, who wrote the majority judgment, that the matter with reference to improvement should be made, and therefore there was another judgment or order rendered on December 16, 2015, where suggestions were invited from the public, from the members of the bar, and some 15,000 odd suggestions were received. And in that, after hearing everybody, it was decided that a memorandum of procedure will be made, a new memorandum in consultation with the Collegium, after writing and taking into consideration the views of the state government and the government of India. And the first one of that was transparency in the appointment process.
Okay.
Then there was a situation of having a secretariat both in the High Court and Supreme Court. Then the third was about complaints, and the fourth was about miscellaneous provisions about transparency and accountability, including interaction. So therefore, what I am saying is that I only want to bring this to your notice because a lot of people are not aware of what the December 16 order by the very same bench was made.
Mr. Kumar, the fact is it's something that we detailed right in the beginning that the opaqueness of the Collegium system is not lost on anybody else. You just elucidated that with what you just said. But having said that, Vikas Singh is the answer to make the, the Collegium more transparent, is the answer to actually have government representatives on a search cum evaluation committee. Does a search cum evaluation committee even exist in the true sense of being?
No, I am not saying
Mr.
that.
Singh.
I am only saying
Sir,
that
according to me,
Yeah, Mr. Singh, go ahead.
So I can put it into two parts. Firstly, I have actually suggested a bill to the law minister where he should, according to me, pass a law to regulate the collegium system, because as far as searching the names is concerned, there is a huge problem in the present system. So what the collegium is doing, it is appointing people whom the collegium members personally know. Now that is not the right way to find out the best talent amongst the people who would be eligible to be appointed as judges. So the law minister, when my comment was taken yesterday, I was told that he has said that he wants to be included in the collegium itself, and my reaction was on that basis. When I came to know about even today the letter is not in the public domain, but from what I gather later on from the basis of his tweet is that he says that he should be part of the search committee, and that search committee will only shortlist names. And there I am in complete agreement, and I say not only the law minister but also the Bar Association of the High Courts or the Supreme Court Bar Association should be involved in this process of searching names. And once the names are collated of eligible people, and this search committee can be told that this is the criteria, the basic criteria on the basis of which you can suggest names. Once those names are suggested, then the collegium may decide. I mean, there is no problem in the collegium. There is no change in the collegium in that sense. But this is just a advance action or I would say preparatory action to decide on who all would be eligible and suitable, both in terms of integrity and merit, to be considered for elevation. Once those names are there, and once those names are there, and the suggestions of all are taken in that process, and if the names are also decided on the basis of, say, for instance, if there is an income criteria, so there should be, say, supposing 10 lakhs for a particular high court or 20 lakhs annual income, or if there is a number of reported judgments that you must have in your name, or there must be number of years of standing in the bar, a particular age limit or particular range of age. All those could be the basis for the search committee to decide on names, and then the collegium decides. So this is really not asking the change of the collegium system itself or to be part of the collegium, but it is only making the job easier for the collegium and bringing more transparency.
But Mr. Singh, and I'll bring in Sanjay Hegde to weigh in on this, because there is no search committee as of now, and you've said that a search committee needs to be formed, especially so that a certain amount of transparency sets in. But to have government nominees on search committees is something which many legal minds have raised, as this is an ultimate attempt to control the judiciary. Sanjay Hegde, the fact that I would reckon most of you cannot deny is that there has been a certain amount of opaqueness when it comes down to the collegium system, therefore the conversation that we are having right now.
There has been opaqueness, but if we are unclear about what the letter says, then let me take both alternatives. If the law minister wants to be part of the collegium, then that is absolutely wrong. If he doesn't want to be part of the collegium and he only wants to sort of suggest names, that has always been open to the government, and it's not as if the governments have not suggested names for consideration. Every government, whether at the center or at the state, does suggest to the Chief Justice in charge of the collegium that these are possible names that you might consider, and there always has been negotiation. So, are we making a mountain of a molehill? Is it a storm in a teacup, or is it part of another calculated attempt to get this to start demonizing the collegium and start demonizing the court? That is where doubts arise. We have had a continuous series of attacks on the collegium judges, speaking of dynasties, and now we've even had constitutional authorities attacking the basic structure doctrine. The basic structure doctrine came about in 1973, much before most of us went to law college. Now, to attack it at this stage speaks to a pattern which is not very healthy.
All right, okay. Both our other co-panelists also want to raise, weigh in. But Mr. Kumar, then there's another question. Yeah, Mr. Singh, I'll come to you as well. But Mr. Kumar, another question is that all of this is ultimately leading up to possibly the government looking at introducing a law when it comes down to judicial appointments.
Well, I don't want to speculate about making of a law or not. All that I am reiterating that the very 5 judges who struck down the NJC amendment themselves said that there is a secretariat required, and secretariat's functions and duties and responsibilities will be prescribed. So that secretariat was to do exactly what? The opaqueness will continue if the government goes to the Chief Justice and says, recommend some names. Who will know what is the discussion amongst them? The secretariat is for the purpose of transparency, that what names are discussed will be before the secretariat. Those secretariat names will go to the Collegium. The Collegium will decide on them and make recommendation.
Okay.
The Collegium, so therefore, the very 5 judges said that there is a requirement to improve the system, and that can be done through a secretariat. The secretariat will have many people who will be there, as Mr. Vikas Singh said, that there should be consultative process from the Advocate General, from the Bar Association, from other people. And it's not that the judge knows a lawyer and therefore picks up the lawyer or picks up a judge for the purpose of appointment. Is not right. So therefore that is where the opaqueness is.
Okay.
So to bring about transparency, which also is mentioned by the very 5 judges, the secretariat was the system sought to be made. That has not been made.
But Vikas Singh, if there is no secretariat, then if the secretariat is formed, it ultimately comes down to what will be the component or who will make up the secretariat.
So, just to answer what Sanjay said just now, that there is already a system where government suggests name. There is unfortunately no system today where the government suggests name. Government, if it is doing it is doing it informally, and which is not right. There should be a proper method of government also having a say in the search of the names. I'm clear on this, that government having a say on deciding who should be, because ultimately if we say that the Collegium will pick up the best name, then for anybody to suggest a name, I don't see, and if the Collegium itself will prescribe the criteria of who can be put in the search, I see no reason, and there is no system at the moment for government suggesting name. Now, as far as the law is concerned, the judgment of the Supreme Court, it has been, so the NJC had 2 components. One component was of shortlisting names, which is the purpose of this search committee, and the second purpose was who will appoint. The judgment of the Supreme Court has been, the NJC has been stuck down only on the second point, which is on who will appoint, not on how the names should be collated. Now, that part of the NJC has actually not been set aside, and actually they should have only set aside the other part. But now the government is very well within its rights to bring in a law to regulate the Collegium system and provide for a secretariat. Because you know what is happening, the judges have so much of judicial work to do. They have to read files, they have to dictate judgments at
Sanjay
home.
Hegde,
Where do they get the time to,
Sanjay Hegde, if ultimately, like what Mr. Singh is saying, if it is going to be the Collegium, then how does it matter?
See, the Collegium, even now, in law, makes recommendations. Names are generated, the source doesn't matter. When the Collegium makes recommendations, it is not as if all those recommendations become appointments. The government of the day has been sitting on several files. You can take it from me that if the government does not want somebody to be appointed, now, despite what the Collegium says, those appointments very, very rarely take place. Most often it has happened that the Collegium has not made any recommendations which the government is likely to dislike. We have had some very fine Chief Justices of the High Courts who continue to be Chief Justices of the High Court only because the Collegium knows that if they are recommended, they are unlikely to be appointed to the Supreme Court. So the government does have a veto. Now what the government is asking for is a total control over the source.
Okay. All right. I appreciate all three gentlemen for joining us. Thank you there. We're going to leave it at that. Mr. Hegde, your other two panelists were shaking their heads on that note, but completely out of time. Thank you for joining us. Trust India Today to keep the spotlight on this entire controversy, which is stealthily brewing away. A quick break. On the other side is Rahul Kamal coming in from Davos.
Food shortage, stampedes, gunfires. Pakistan, a country of 23 crore people, is now paying for its crimes. For far too long, Islamabad overlooked governance and instead focused all its energies on the use of terror as a strategic weapon. Today, firing their AK-47 rifles, the army and police are protecting the priceless wheat flour against hungry crowds, risking their lives to lay their hands on that one bag of food. Pakistan is facing its worst ever food crisis, with parts of the country reporting shortage of wheat. Stampedes have been reported in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Sindh and Balochistan provinces. The country is drowning in debt, making even imports a tough task. Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif met UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed on Sunday. The nuclear weapon state, struggling to stay afloat, sought a fresh economic package from the UAE.
और मुझे बड़ी शर्म आ रही है, लेकिन मजबूरी है, हमारे मामलात जो माली मामलात जो हैं इस वक्त बड़े IMF की शराइत में हम जकड़े हुए हैं. अभी भी 9th रिव्यू मुकम्मल नहीं हुआ. उनके शर्त है कि जनाब बिजली की कीमतें बढ़ाएं, फलां कीमतें बढ़ाएं. गरीब आदमी को पर कितना और बोझ डालें.
The country is facing challenges on multiple fronts like plummeting forex reserves, high inflation which has reached 42%, conflict with Taliban, Baloch insurgency, food shortage, power crisis and massive flood damage. Country that funded terror is now left embarrassed for begging for funds.
वहाँ पर मैंने तफसील से बात की कि मुझे बड़ी I feel very embarrassed कि मैं आपसे हर दफ़ा आता हूँ, कोई और आता है तो आप कहते तो नहीं, लेकिन दिल के अंदर तो आप समझते होंगे ये पैसे मांगने आ गए हैं.
With UAE pledging additional $1 billion to help cash-strapped ally Pakistan, question arises, will Islamabad use the money to meet the basic needs of citizens, or will it once again be used to fund terror? Bureau Report, India Today.
Kashmir, once known as the paradise on earth, for more than 3 decades in the news for terror and killings, Deepa Soni, an artist from Udhampur, uses her brush to remind us of all good things about Kashmir. She wants the youth of the valley to be aware of the centuries-old heritage of Kashmir. She shares a vision of a positive, peaceful and fearless Kashmir through her canvas.
I keep on trying different mediums. Like आप देखेंगे कि 3-dimensional काम मैं बहुत करती हूँ, कई बार मैं abstracts बहुत करती हूँ, कई बार मैं folk styles भी कर रही हूँ. Miniature के साथ में मेरा बहुत ही मुझे बहुत पसंद है miniature paintings करना, जो कि बसोली painting मुझे बहुत पसंद है.
Through her exquisite paintings, Soni recently depicted the autumn and what it means for the valley.
जो यंग जनरेशन है वो नए आर्ट फॉर्म्स के साथ काफ़ी इंस्पायर रहती है और जो पुरानी जनरेशन है वो भी अपने पुराने हेरिटेज जो आर्ट फॉर्म्स करती आ रही है अब वो आगे जनरेशन्स को नहीं सिखा रही है। तो कहीं ना कहीं जब यंग जनरेशन को इसमें इंटरेस्ट होगा तो ये फोक स्टाइल्स को हम आगे लेके जाएंगे।
Soni's main objective is to promote folk arts through exhibitions to keep the youth engaged. With Mauzu Mohammed, Bureau Report, India Today.
The bitter spat between the Delhi government and Lieutenant Governor V.K. Saxena spilled out onto the streets of the national capital once again on Monday. Chief Minister of Delhi Arvind Kejriwal led a protest march with party legislators from the assembly to the LG's residence.